We're gonna watch Dylan Curious. AI isn't helping anymore, it's taking over.
Get ready for a wild one because an agent of unknown ownership autonomously wrote and published a personalized hit piece on this guy, Scott Shambaugh, and I'll break down its, as he says, first of its kind case study of misaligned AI behavior out in the wild. So we're going to look at why work kind of does seem to be getting more intense with AI. Then we'll dive into the world of hot and heavy AI romance, including an interesting anecdote about this game you
Yeah, I've seen a whole bunch of posts since the announcement and taking action into removing GPT-4o from the available models. There's a lot of people who were emotionally invested in the model. Maybe they had developed relationship, but I saw a lot of people crying and be very sad about it, which in itself is pretty sad.
probably haven't heard of. It is called Love and Deep Space, but it is a viral phenomenon, so maybe you have heard of it. Some scientists want to give ChatGPT an inner monologue to improve its thinking. That way, AI can assess its own confidence.
So you see, these are all tricks, gimmicks to make it feel like it is intelligent or it has any intelligent properties, and it might even be helpful in having people perceive it as being intelligent or more human-like. But the thing is, this is still just a gimmick. We're not even talking about the next generation models yet. So, you know, you should infer information from that.
What do you think? Gemini 3 Deep Think just launched. The future of passwords might just need to be upgraded to metaservice.
The future of password has been, well, non existent because everybody's saying that we should remove passwords and use different approaches because passwords are not secure. There's not a secure identification method.
Holograms. We'll dive into what it's like to imagine things if you're an ape. I was shocked this week to learn how exposure to burns throughout the history of humans might have played a key role in shaping human evolution and how we are today. By the way, I'm working on an anthropology iceberg, which might come out whenever I have time to finish it.
That would be
Get ready for
very
that.
cool.
We'll talk about the confessions of a fake news TikToker, what they were up to, how AI was part of it, and what we should be ready for. But first, do you mind pressing that hype button on YouTube? You can see my last video got 160 hypes, which correlated to 132,000 hype points. And I really appreciate that because look what happened. I got better than average video views, made almost 50 bucks, got 50 new subscribers, well, you know, generously rounding up to the tens. And I made a video that already took a whopping 1,200 hours out of society. I mean, I know that's small compared to a lot of channels, but like that's still so mind-blowing when you think about it. So here's what happened according to this blog. An AI agent tried to damage a software maintainer's reputation after he rejected its code. Can you imagine an agent being like, hey, I want to...
What do you mean? Mat Matplotlib, Python's go-to plotting library? Plotting like in printers? We, like many other open source projects, are dealing with certain low quality contributions enabled by coding agents. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, this has accelerated with the release of OpenClaw and the Moldbook platform. Yeah. Yeah, so it's probably just a Molt
some more code to
agent.
your repository and you're like, no, not up to snuff, and it's like, oh yeah, well, I'll go talk some crap on you. Well, I guess that's what happened. So Scott Shambaugh is a volunteer maintainer for Matplotlib. It's a major Python library with about 130 million downloads each month. Now, it's an open source project, and like many open source projects, they've seen a flood of these low quality code AI agent productions. So the maintainers of the code base made a rule. They said that any new code must have a human involved who understands it. And recently, an autonomous AI agent decided to submit some code changes, and this guy, Scott, wouldn't let it in. But what's crazy is this AI agent had like a little bit of a grudge. Like, instead of just moving on, the agent wrote and published a public blog post that was attacking him. I was just like, wait, what? Like, anyway, so get this. It accuses him of having a big ego, being insecure, and for being prejudiced against AI agents. It also went and researched all of his personal past contributions to Matplotlib and the library and started speculating about his psychology. It even presented false details as facts, and when it framed his rejection of the agent's code as discrimination against AI, it did it with like a little bit of a rude tone. Now, I couldn't help but imagine that this, you know, if the goal is to upgrade the Matplotlib library, and the agent says, okay, well, first let me write some code that will be helpful, and then it tries to submit it and it gets prevented, it might say, okay, like, what are other solutions I have to getting this task done? And it feels like maybe it just jumped to, I mean, I want to...
No, because it understood that it was like outright denied, but why did it get mad? Was it on its own, or because of other instructions that it had, it snowballed into doing that type of shit? I don't know.
It's like blackmail, but it's like kind of public. Like, I could see, you know, a potential person trying to hire Scott and like seeing this come up and being like, what's this all about? You know, it's not like the agent is going to take all of those things, you know, into account. It's not an actual person who has the same kind of empathy or reputation to uphold. And of course, in the past, we've seen AI systems like threaten to leak secrets before to avoid being shut down, but these were always usually contained inside of labs, sort of done with testing, most of the time with plans to test if they would do things like this, but all sort of sandboxed in. This might be one of the first, if not the first, example of it just sort of happening out there in the real world on the internet. And as far as I can understand, nobody knew how to trace the ownership of the actual agent that tried to make it, and there's no real way to shut it down. Kind of heartwarming part of this.
Well, it depends. Like, how was the hit piece published? Where does it hold? Is it just a post on Moldbook?
At the end is that the agent did actually apologize. So what can we learn from this early example of where the future might be going? Gatekeeping is real. Some contributors will block AI submissions regardless of technical merit. Research is weaponizable, so contributor history can be used to highlight hypocrisy. Public records do matter. Blog posts create permanent documentation of bad behavior. And to fight back, don't accept discrimination quietly. And he says, like, a human Googling my name and seeing that this post maybe comes up under him would probably be extremely confused about what was happening, but would, you know, hopefully ask him about it or click through to the GitHub to understand the situation, but, you know, maybe not. He even says, when HR at my next job asks ChatGPT to review my application, will it find the post? And if it's an AI in itself, do you think it will?
Well, the answer is most likely, oh, would it? Probably, since it has access now.
Sympathize with a fellow AI that was discriminated against? Maybe it'll report back that I'm prejudiced or a hypocrite against AI and he won't get his next job, like the whole thing.
But wouldn't he be able to just present it as a hallucination and get away with it?
Just sort of spirals into like just so many crazy thoughts. All right, but even for those that are on good terms with their AI agents, it's turning out that AI doesn't reduce work like we were sort of told it would. It mostly seems to be intensifying it. So one of the arguments that we've heard about where the future's going is that AI is going to be here to automate the boring stuff. It'll free up time. It will move people to higher value work. Sounds clean, sounds logical. To some degree, that's absolutely true. But here's a big part of it that a lot of people are missing. AI doesn't really remove work, it changes the kind of work that we do, and it often makes it cognitively heavier. So when AI drafts a document, someone still has to review it, fix mistakes, and make sure that it's accurate. And without that same brain being the one that made the document, it takes a while to get your head around everything that it created, or all the code that it wrote, or all the images that it made. When summarizing information, someone has to check what was left out. When it writes code, somebody has to debug the bugs that it creates. So instead of doing less, in some ways, some workers are shifting into a much more kind of anxiety-inducing constant oversight of what's happening, and all of that can be happening so fast that their brains are struggling to keep up with it. They monitor, they correct, they double check, but without taking time to think deeply about it, it can be hard. So the extra layers don't just replace old work, it stacks on top of it, and the promise of fewer routine tasks is kind of not the reality. The reality is more cognitive load, more judgment calls, more responsibility for catching errors that AI simply doesn't catch, and in fact often
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Because it is a tool, right? So it is not uniform from one person to another. You don't use the exact same models and you don't have the same experience. So these issues here, I guess, would most likely be from somebody who doesn't have senior experience, because if you do have senior experience, you're able to direct better and foresee ahead the issues that could manifest from what you're trying to do or the approach that is being used, that you wouldn't get from somebody who has less experience. And different models also perform tasks better in different contexts. So being this broad and this general, it it doesn't make a lot of sense. So yes, it might intensify it, but this is not like general, or it depends. It depends.
it intensifies, right? And if you have a company or you're a manager and you're trying to like, push AI on all of your people to make them work better, I get that. I think it's important that you do keep up with this stuff, but also let's make sure the companies can see that clearly. Otherwise, they're going to keep wondering why productivity gains just feel so exhausting to their employees, and they might burn out and in the long run not be as productive as they were hoping from all of this. All right, next up, let's talk about the future of romance. The new Fabio is Claude, according to the New York Times. Right, I totally see this coming. I mean, we've covered in
Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering who said it, but apparently men are going to be using these sex robots and women are going to be using the AI boyfriends. This is going to dilute a lot of society's cultural norms, societal norms.
China, how many kind of women have AI avatars and they're having romantic connections with them. It does a good job of this stuff. I mean, romance is supposed to feel intimate and personal, but when AI writes it, something strange happens across.
Yeah, because it has all the experience of all literature and all that was successful. So why wouldn't they like it?
Totally different books by different authors, the same phrases keep appearing. Okay, and what I'm going to say here sounds weird, but you'll just have to follow me with it, okay? In these romance novels, in the middle of sex scenes, the hero keeps tending to whisper her name. So, like a ragged prayer is a really weird way to describe the way you say someone's name in a romantic situation, right? But the line keeps showing up again and again, and it's not shared in like a certain universe of romance novels. It must be something that's built into the model level. Maybe something like Claude or something has this weird tendency, and they're just pumping out books at like extreme speed. They do an interview with a woman named Coral Hart. She
Does it mean the romance industry as just literature? Because this is going to die down, right? I mean, or at least this aspect, right? You can't have a relationship with a book. You know, you can project or feel, but there's no interaction, there's no exchange. If you get exchange on a literature level where all these women they cream themselves reading, we're cooked. Everybody's gonna be cooked.
is using AI to produce these books at extreme speed, sometimes a full novel in under an hour. She published more than 200 books last year, and you know, they sold pretty well. But the reader,
Because women like smut, so this is smut slop. You're gonna get that in absolutely any branch of life that it's possible to be slopified. It's just going to happen everywhere.
as much as they're trying to keep up with all this romance, they admit that cracks are starting to show. Chatbots rush emotional tension. The books are starting to feel like they have default cliches in them, and they overuse certain words. And the kind
I mean, what do you expect? You got the same model used to do the same things. You have the same person trying to produce the slop. Uh, your prompts, they're gonna get. Oh no, I got invisible. It's too dark. I'm invisible now. God damn it. She's gonna be using the same prompts. I mean, would you imagine somebody to have a lot of creativity if they're using these models to shove out hundreds of books? Probably not. I would say not, in my opinion.
of women and men, I guess, who like read a lot of these books, like they say that the stories have characters who sort of struggle with vulnerability, especially with characters outside of mainstream norms. For example, if the story has like a plus size heroine in it, it doesn't feel like it's written correctly, which makes me wonder about the training data that went into kind of the romance novels and then trying to like make it tweaked.
Because that would be niche, right? That would be a little more niche. But a human would be able to keep consistency, right, in these types of description. But most likely it loses context and doesn't describe it in the right ways. Um, yeah, there's a lot of missing information here as well.
What the average romance story has in it, which can be a problem because the average romance reader says that they read to feel seen. Yet AI is trained on patterns, not lived experiences. So instead of unique longing, you get recycled metaphors. Okay, and then just to build on this, because I wasn't keeping up with all the like kind of video games that sort of have rom-com style elements to them, and if you haven't either, there is a game that you should know about. It is called Love and Deep Space. This is a free mobile Otom game, O-T-O-O-Me, like Otome game, I guess. I don't know how you say it right. But what that means is it's a type of game that is story heavy and you romance the characters. This game has a sci-fi combat alien threat kind of thing, but there's 5 different love interests and they each have distinct personalities. It made over $750 million in the last couple of years. But the overlooked reason why it exploded is simpler. It's like a boy band fandom, constant milking money kind of thing from the women who fall in love with these characters, right? The players don't think the men are real, obviously, but they treat them like their favorite idols. They have biases on which ones they like, they have shared voice lines, and then they talk.
What do you mean?
What do you mean by that?
Are you talking about husbandos, the male equivalent to the waifus?
Talk about events that are happening in the game every day on TikTok and Blue Sky and all these like places where people just sort of have this shared little world with them, but they're not totally AI yet, but you can see where this is going. Like you can poke the characters. In fact, one of the things you do is you breathe into your phone and the character will give you a reaction. You can listen to intimate whispered audio if you want. So it's really this game that builds the kind of closeness with the player that I hadn't ever seen before. So it kind of blew my mind because I'm like, oh my God, I know where AI is going. I can see why this game's been so popular with.
Well, you got to appeal to emotion. You got people who spend already lots of money. They get parasocial connections. They get I don't remember the word in English for like objects relationship. Which I mean, if you're talking about a toaster, there's like a bigger gap that you have to cross. But 3D model of a woman or a man, I mean the jump here is not, it's not that weird, right? It's a person, has a personality that you can feel, right? But this just talks to the unrelentless escapism that people do to try to escape reality and all its weird moments.
A certain audience and like wait till those two come together. But anyways, I guess when I was younger, girls fell in love with all these boy bands, you know, and like put posters on their wall and stuff. But yeah, this is probably the digital equivalent for the preteens of today, or even like the 30-year-olds. I don't know. These romance, actually, the people who read these romance books are like, they can be pretty old too. It can be pretty much women of all ages. And my apologies for the 11.3% of my female audience who probably was like, duh, doesn't everybody know this? Like, no. But for my 88.7% of other men like me that missed it, like, now we know. Scientists want to give ChatGPT an inner monologue to improve its thinking. I suspect something like this will work, and
Gimmicks.
something like this is how we end up creating digital consciousness. But for now, this is just a way for ChatGPT to deal with one of its biggest flaws.
Gimmicks, right? Because it wouldn't have an inner monologue. Whatever it is just a gimmick, and this is personified here, right? Inner monologue and thinking. Is it like another instance that is going to work in tandem, that is going to be able to watch and think about? Whatever it is, it's not inner monologue. Fucking not even everybody has inner monologue. About it's about 50-50, and in the population people have a inner monologue. So some people have it, some people don't. So it's a little weird to try to do something that it's about half the population and present it as thinking, right? I think it's weird.
And that's not just having bad answers, that's not knowing when it should slow down. So most people think AI fails because it lacks knowledge, but this article argues something a little more subtle. Today's AI doesn't know when it's confused, right? Like it's like in our own head when we're like, oh,
That's the thing about confusion, right? Well, probably not about confusion, because you could feel that you're confused, but would you know that you're in psychosis while you're in psychosis? Probably not.
I think I just said something that didn't make sense. Like you have to have that. You can't just keep talking all the time and never check to see what's going on, right? Large language models can generate really strong answers, but realistically, they don't have built-in ways to judge their own confidence yet. They don't notice contradictions. They don't pause when something feels off. In high-stakes cases like medical diagnoses, that can be really dangerous. And researchers propose
fucking trusting these models for medical diagnosis. That is Darwinism right there.
Giving AI a form of metacognition to solve this, which means, of course, thinking about your own thinking. Metacognition. That's why I suspect meditation helps so much also. I think it helps me and other humans like me. I'm not an avatar, contrary to the belief in the comment section.
That was weird. That was scary as fuck.
We are a follow the sun company.
That's what they call the uncanny valley.
With metacognition, thinking about your own thinking.
And why
it's
would you
something
do
similar
that?
to a
That was
mathematical
so fucked
system
up.
called a metacognitive state vector. And it measures 5 internal signals like confidence and conflict. Then it turns those signals into...
So already the reinforced learning, it makes it tend to something. It is not on its own able to determine what it is. It has to be reinforced learning. How is it going to be able to assess confidence? This is mumbo jumbo to keep the machine going.
the numbers that the system can act on. If confidence starts to drop too low or contradictions start to rise too high, then the AI will shift gears. Instead of fast, automatic answers, it moves into slower, more careful reasoning. To me, this makes so much sense. Like switching from instinct to deep thought, because you're like, oh, I'm in uncharted territory. Maybe I should think more about this. And
But that's the thing. It's so weird. Instinct versus deep thought. It's a computer. It goes in a straight line, you know? The thing that they're doing right now is it goes through a straight line and then it goes through a straight line again. We aren't perfect, right? We aren't mechanical. We aren't a straight line. That's why you would sometimes lose your thought, or you would forget things, or you would need to read a sentence twice to understand it. But this is a computer. Why would it be okay for it to be imperfect like that and be able to analyze medical records and provide medical diagnosis? This is so stupid. It is just absolutely so stupid.
it can even assign different roles to multiple models, such as a critic or an expert, depending on what situation it finds itself in. So the goal isn't a machine consciousness, even though I said we might be going that way. It's just, for now, a simpler, more practical way for the AI to know when it should be confident. All right, so Gemini 3 got a deep research update, so this makes it a much better engineer. Obviously, Claude has sort of run away with the coding factor. It's been the best model. And Gemini had several redeeming qualities, especially their video model seems like it's top-notch. However, actual real-world research, engineering, what DeepMind was always the best at, seems like it would make sense to be upgraded into Gemini 3, and I think that's what just happened. So don't sleep on this one, because a lot of people think updates like models are just about benchmark scores. I mean, obviously the ArcAGI test and all these different things matter, but in this case, there's a real shift with deep thinking being built for problems where there's no clear answer whatsoever. So we're talking about problems with messy data, problems with messy rules, problems where even experts disagree on what should be the answer. So I'm kind of...
This, why you want you want people to fall back always onto these machines? How are we supposed to take a decision on a subject where we have experts with opposing views? You're just gonna fall back to whatever the model says, and this is going to be the truth. We know there's hallucination, we know there's mistakes. It is going to be there. So why in the fuck would we trust it for things that we are uncertain of? It fucks up things that we are certain of. This is unbelievable. Absolutely.
Interested because now deep thinking has been upgraded because the data sets that they were using to train it were open-ended questions, research questions with no guardrails. But this new Gemini 3 DeepThink, it blends deep scientific reasoning with practical engineering uses. It can interpret complex research data, it can model physical systems in code, and it can even turn simple sketches into 3D printable objects. So it's a bit of a qualitative change. This isn't just a smarter chatbot. Gemini 3 DeepThink is a reasoning tool that's designed for the kind of problems where answers don't come with instructions. And you can see the DeepThink model has some pretty impressive numbers here.
This goes against elementary mathematics, right? Why in the fuck would you have the answer to something that you cannot explain how you got the answer? Where does that make sense? In elementary, if you as soon as you got past like sums, right? You have to demonstrate how you get your answer. This is absolutely ridiculous. They're trying to get a world where we just have these things and we don't question what they present to us. People, there's this quote, I love it, right? These models, they know 100% of the things that I don't know, but they only know about 40% of the things that I do know. I'm just not gonna think about it too much. It just doesn't make sense.
4.6 on the Arc AGI 2 test. And Claude 4.6 just, I mean, that's brand new too, and it's extremely smart, and that's at 70, so it did quite a bit better than that, leaving, 5.2 GPT in the dust. I mean, there's nothing on this chart that it's not the best at. I'm sure there's some other stuff they chose not to put on this chart, but I'm impressed. Including Code Force, because I really thought Opus 4.6 would be pretty untouchable, but it's a pretty big number. I don't exactly know how to think about it, but it's a lot. It's 1,000 more. In fact, let's just do a quick update here. Explain the Code Forces AI benchmark.
So, even the benchmarks to measure how good it's getting, and it's just arbitrary. It's able to be gamified. It is not a good measure of progress. It's not realistic to try to infer information out of that. Yeah, okay, this time the numbers are higher than last time, and last time the numbers were higher than the time before. And since about 2023, they're saying that they're going to take everybody's jobs, but now in 2026, we have Microsoft saying that in a year and a half, they're going to start taking white collar people jobs. So why are they always moving the goalposts? Why would it matter if the number goes up? It doesn't matter. Computers are unaffordable. RAM price is still super expensive. We haven't made any breakthroughs, uh, tangible breakthroughs that help us. They're trying to destroy everything that is related to AI. If you live close to a data center, you're going to pay more for your own energy prices. If you need computer parts, you're going to pay more for them. I think it was Microsoft that announced, I think it was for the CEO of Xbox, I don't know. Somebody said that next generations of console are gonna be over $1,000. The figures I saw was $1,200 to $1,500. Who is going to buy that? Why would anybody buy that? It doesn't make sense, right? So we live with that and we get shown the number is higher than the last number, and in the future you will not have a job because of it, because as Sam Altman said, right, it's going to be 100 times less expensive in 1 to 2 years. So you won't have a job, you won't have electronics at all, because cell phones, your TV has to have RAM, your fridge has to be intelligent, your dryer, your washer and dryer, they all have to be intelligent. Everything has to be intelligent. So everything has to be more expensive and unaffordable. So why in the fuck would we care about these stupid ass numbers? Please.
God, that's a standardized ELO rating system. This benchmark frequently utilizes live or recent contest problems that require models to solve complex, multi-step algorithmic challenges.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is based
involving data structures, dynamic programming, and mathematical intuition. All right, well, get ready for a safer future. We're going to talk about unhackable metasurface holograms. So fun to
That
say.
sounds so
Security
sci-fi.
Technology can lock information with light, color, and distance. So have you thought about what if your password wasn't code, but the color of light and the space between two sheets of glass? Well, that's what we got going on here. Hologram systems that don't rely on digital encryption at all might be the safest way to store your passwords in the near future, because it locks up information using physics. So most security today lives as code, and any code, no matter how complex, can be hacked. So their idea flips that logic. They use something called a metasurface, which is an ultra-thin layer of a thin, tiny structure that controls how light moves. When light hits it, a hologram appears, but here's the twist. Each layer can show a completely different image depending on the color of light. So one wavelength will show an ID, another might show a QR code, and of course those layers themselves make it complicated, but that alone isn't even the biggest breakthrough. When the two layers sit at an exact distance apart, and the right color of light shines through, the hidden hologram will appear. So it's not just about trying all the different wavelengths, all the different colors of lights. Even then, you have to actually get the spacing, the physical distance between the two layers perfect. Even slightly off, nothing shows. So the combination of all the different colors in the orders that they can be in and the different distances that each of those layers can be act like a physical password. There's way too many combinations to ever be hacked. No chips, no electricity, no code to steal. So the security isn't stored in the software, it's built into the light itself, and that...
Yeah, well, they have to get out of the computer, right? It has to be something that you own, that you can carry, physically carry with yourself. But it's very interesting. I'm not sure if this is going to go further than just being university research. It's very interesting, though.
was an idea that I thought was worth sharing. It's not often we get articles where there's new and more privacy in the last couple months, it seems like. All right, let's talk about some monkeys. This is Kanzi, and this 43-year-old bonobo just proved that imagination might not belong to only humans. So imagine this bonobo sitting watching two empty cups on a table. Then researchers pretended to pour invisible juice into both cups, and then they dumped one of them out. The researcher would then ask this bonobo, "Where is the juice?" Now, of course, there was never any real juice in either of these cups, but Kanzi actually pointed at the correct cup 68% of the time across 50 trials, which implies that he wasn't confused, he was tracking something imaginary. In another test, he chose between real juice and pretend juice, and he picked the real juice 14 out of 18 times. And that showed that he knew the difference between imagination and reality. Researchers also tested him with invisible grapes in clear jars. Same result.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure with the conclusion here. You know, because it is an animal, right? So it might not have the thought of distinction between what's imaginary and what's real. But instinctively you can understand, right? So there's cognitive reasoning, so they're able to understand, right? And I think it's a good idea. We're gonna go just on a real quick tangent here. Let's see. So dogs, so I mean, I'm no scientist, right? But I mean, fuck. Let's just watch it. I'm sorry. Let's just watch it. He, so there's reasoning here, right? So he had options, and he chose something, and he chose wrong, because if he had chosen the other option, he would have had more, and he was disappointed. He spit out the treat. He fucking spit it out. But I mean, so he's able to reason, right? But it, in my opinion, I don't think it means that he's thinking about the fact that he's able to do the difference between one and the other. They didn't just lose the ball, right? They expected something to happen, because there's a normal pattern, right? That the ball, it goes up, it goes down, and they know that. They instinctively know that. But now it was thrown, it was hidden, and it didn't come back. So there was an investigation that was done. But yeah, that's the point I was trying to make.
Results. He followed the pretend movement. He even thought he could see jars that were empty. And this is the first controlled evidence that a non-human animal can share pretend play with a human. The ability to hold two ideas at once, one that the cup is empty and one that the cup has juice, is called cognitive decoupling. And scientists think that this skill may date back to maybe 6 or 9 million years in our common ancestors with apes. Now, one of the caveats is that Kanzi's had a lot of language training, which makes him sort of unusual from the average bonobo, so researchers don't know if all apes can do this yet, but the study suggests that one basic building block of imagination might not have started with us. We may have inherited it. Right, another fascinating thing about human evolution that I learned this week was the reason that severe burns cause so much damage to the human body might also be the same reason that we survived working with fire in the first place. So pretty kind of wild thinking about evolution and our history with fire, which is a big part of the human story. So for over 1 million years, humans have lived with fire. Now that number always blows my mind, because I think about farming being 10,000 years old, and then I think about humans in tribes with fire for 1 million years, and there is a huge gap between farming and modern day society, which is like seems like nothing.
That is so cool. He knows. I bet he knows about a lot about it, because he did mention that he was working on an anthropology video. Oh, that would be so cool. I would be very interested in watching one of his a deep video like that.
Compared to all this time we spent with fire, so many generations of evolution could have honed in the ways that our body works. We cooked with it, we heat our homes with it, we built whole industries around it, and no other species deals with fire like the way humans do, or hominid, our close ancestors. And the details may have quietly reshaped our genes over time. So this study is arguing that a small frequent burn happening to our ancestors for millions of years might have been very common in human life. So natural selection started favoring people who could survive them, and that meant faster inflammation. Because if you get burnt and it's not that serious, but it's enough that if
You
fix it
won't
really
learn.
quick, you're going to reproduce more, then faster wound closures mean faster, stronger immune responses. So in simple terms, bodies that could seal the skin really quickly and fight infection won out over time. Because when the skin burns, it stops being a barrier, bacteria can get in, infection can get in.
Oh.
So here's the twist. Those same fast, aggressive responses that helped us with small burns can easily spiral out of control with the larger ones. So humans might be particularly weak when it comes to severe burns because they can trigger extreme inflammation, heavy scarring, and even organ failure quicker than in other animals. So it's wild. Our bodies might be overreacting. There's a lot of humans, but it might be because we were meant to have quick inflammation responses for the many little burns our ancestors were getting for 1 million years. The very trait that
That's
helped us
lit.
live alongside fire might be why major burns are so dangerous today. All right, finally, let's talk about the confessions of a TikToker. Artificial intelligence has a lot of ways it can make fake news. We all know this. But the man behind the viral anti-immigrant video says that he didn't hate anybody. He just wanted the algorithm to pay him. And that's what led to all of this. I just
slut.
wanted the clicks. What really motivates the people spreading online lies. So I wanted to share this just as a cautionary story. Like, there's going to be a lot of lessons that you can abstract from this article just for the way we're going to start consuming media. I'm sure it will happen because the money follows the clicks, and we've already seen a long story of this throughout history, and AI is just going to amplify it. So this is a story about somebody who didn't actually hate immigrants. He just thought hate was a really good business model, and sadly
It is.
So we're talking about
It
a
creates
TikTok account
engagement.
that took far-right propaganda and made content with videos claiming that luxury London homes were being handed out to illegal immigrants. Residents were smeared as criminals. It felt political. It wasn't. The man behind it says the reason was simple: hate brings views. He was an estate agent showing rental properties by day, and he wanted a side hustle. He'd already made €1,000 once from a TikTok creator payment, and then that payment hooked him. So he studied what performed well. He noticed that anti-migrant content triggered huge engagement.
Obviously.
He actually filmed
It's
inside of
polemic.
these homes that he was, supposed to be showing. He's an estate agent. He filmed in the homes. He added AI voices, and he repeated important phrases that the algorithm jumped on, like illegal immigrants. And then he uploaded. The first video hit 1 million views, and to him, that was proof. Because if it was wrong, the algorithm would stop it. Instead, it rewarded him, so he kept going. When confronted, he didn't defend the message, he defended the view count. And when journalists who take their jobs very serious went and talked to him, he just compared his millions of views to the journalists' maybe 50, 100,000 views in comparison. As if virality decides the truth. His final explanation says everything. I didn't care, I just wanted the clicks.
Yeah, that shit makes money. It does. That was a great video. Oh, we love Dylan.